This episode is brought to you by
Co-creation.
Welcome to Leadership Actually. It's not love, it's leadership. Welcome, Lisa Powney.
Welcome, Lee Rogers. How the devil are you?
Yes, I am very good, thank you.
Not pucker?
Always pucker.
Always pucker.
I was just trying to mix it up, you know.
Yeah, surprise us.
Yeah, well, you know, that's it. What's the word of the week?
What's going on in your world?
100% focused on the bike ride, all prep. Although we've done some funky family stuff recently.
Yeah,
it's
what
been
have you
cool.
been up to?
So we went to Gladiators Experience.
Oh, wow, what was that like?
Oh my word, it was amazing. Met Nitro and Dynamite.
Wow.
They are epic. We did.
Are they coming on the podcast?
Oh, we should have asked them, to be fair.
come on, Lee.
I know, missed opportunity. We did the kids eliminator. I won't say who won because that's slightly embarrassing.
Not you then. No.
Close second, very close second. I also did the adult one, and it's much harder than you actually think.
Anyway?
The bit at the end of the show.
Oh, the end bit, yeah.
Where you've got to go against an opponent to go and do it, but it's much bigger than you think. And then we saw Steve Backshall at the zoo live.
I am well into him at the moment. I've been watching Expedition. Have you been watching that?
No, Deadly 60.
Oh no, Expedition as well. Yeah, really good.
And one of our next guests, actually, in a future episode, got to ask him a question personally, and she was buzzing. So that was always like a heartwarming thing.
Yeah,
we just spent quality family time. What about you and Fred's? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, and Fred's is all good. He's Michael Jackson at the moment, so that's all good. Any opportunity that he can break out into hee and do a little dance and.
How's it go again?
He gets it from me, his talent, obviously. Yeah.
Clearly.
He's even got his own Michael Jackson hat and jacket, and he is going to be Michael Jackson. In fact, every time he gets in the car, that's all we play. I love Michael Jackson. I've loved the film, love everything, but that's it. That's who he is.
That's ace.
But we've had some good fun with it as well. So he's been to weddings and done it there. He did another show, and in the interlude, he took over the stage and just did that. Just broke out into Michael Jackson. But I have to say, you know, I was a bit like, oh, but I do love that he's got the confidence to just, you know, it's not an ego thing. It's just he loves what he does, and, you know, he just wants to be a showman. So, yeah, I love that.
So he gets his skills off his mum?
Yeah, definitely. And I live vicariously through him, always.
You always say that, to be fair.
I do. So, yeah, one day we might do it together. Not that I want to be Michael Jackson.
A bit of a thrill.
A bit of a thrill. Well, enough about us, eh? Shall we introduce our today's guest?
Absolutely, I'm excited for this one.
Are you? Definitely. So welcome, Pete Ackerley. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well, thank you for inviting me.
You look very well. What's been
Lancashire Hills. Lancashire Hills. The weather is always like this in Lancashire, especially on top of the Rosendale Valley.
So
it's always 32 degrees every day, bright sunshine, not a cloud in the sky. So. Yeah.
Do you work for the tourist board now?
I do, yeah, I do. The Rosendale Valley Tourist Board. It's the beautiful place to live.
Brilliant, I love it. Well, we'll dive into that career in a minute. Okay. But I'm going to give you a formal introduction, if that's all right.
Ooh, okay.
And then we'll probably dive into a messy moment, if that's okay. But we're really thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you.
So today's guest is someone who has spent years leading, shaping and supporting organisations across the world of sport and business, so has a really good alignment. Pete, you have worked across clubs, governing bodies and leadership teams. You bring together commercial thinking, people development and community impact in a way that's really grounded and human. You're currently a board director of England and Wales Cricket Board, as well as a trustee, and you've built a career around helping organisations grow while still protecting the human side of leadership, culture and purpose. What I think is really interesting about you is that sport often can look incredibly polished on the outside, but behind it, there are people under pressure, cultures being shaped every day, and leaders trying to balance performance, expectation, and humanity all at once. So I'm very excited that today we'll explore the person behind the role, the lessons sports teaches us about leadership, and what happens when leadership is much more about just winning.
Wow.
How about that?
We'll have a go at that. I'll do my best and stumble through some ideas and some history and what you've learned, and
Nice.
possibly taking some stuff from business into sport, and now a little bit of taking some sport into business.
Lovely. Well, we'll get a little bit of your plotted history. But if I was coming across you on those Lancashire hills and we had a sit down and a cup of tea, and I said, so Peter, what do you do? Who are you? What might you say?
I suppose I'm at that stage of life now, which means, open brackets, really old, been around a long time. Is who I am now is, I'm incredibly thankful and fortunate to be where I am. I don't count myself as being lucky. Lots of people say, oh, you must be lucky being in. Well, there's no luck involved. It's preparation, meeting opportunity, and all of those things. Like, is it Gary Player? The more I practice, the luckier I get. That sort of thing. So, who am I? Had a long executive career, banking, in sport, working from a real local level in sport. And my first job in sport was, so having left banking, my mum's never forgiven me. So you had the title, I was a bank manager in her title.
That's right.
And I'm now a cricket coach with a bag of bats and balls and cones walking around the north of England, coaching people and hitting a bat and ball, which I think I was always a frustrated PE teacher. I always really wanted to be a PE teacher, but banking was the direction I took.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful of that, and I'm really thankful that I did because of that grounding. But who am I now? I suppose I'm now in that position of I can influence a little bit. I try and do it quietly. I don't live on LinkedIn and tell people, what I've just experienced is now, analogy for how your business will now work. I don't sort of get that. I'm just in a position of quietly influencing people in sport who I like to think I've made all the mistakes, been out there, seen it, and I think whether it's sport, education, banking probably, you go around. Eventually, what worked, and then we tried something different, and then something new happened, and actually you can just base it all on some real good base values, clear vision, some clarity of communication, and as long as you get all that, and that's what I try and do. Try and bring that real understanding of sport, whether it be, I've worked in cricket, football, bit of time at the moment in other sports, but also American football. So working with that American influence in sport has just given me I think is a really good grounding and ability to now pass that on. So that's me now. I just approaching semi-retirement, I like to call it, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
I can tell by your face and eyes.
No, just been passing on some experience and some skills and knowledge, and it's the baton passing, isn't it? I can remember people helped me when I started, and you influence you from where you came from to where you become or where you are now. So it's now a question of it's my turn to pass on the baton.
I love that. I think your mum would like that, wouldn't she?
My mum, yeah. Well, she's better now, I think. She sees a couple of things when you're on the telly now and again. So I must be all right now.
There we are, you're doing all right. And I think we're going to touch upon your really varied and amazing career and get some of those insights and pass that back.
Delighted to.
But you did mention there have been some messy moments, or where it hasn't always gone to plan, and we always like to start there because it is a bit of the messy class. So if we had to ask you to pick a messy moment where things really didn't go to plan and you learned some stuff from it, what would come to mind?
I don't know if it didn't go to plan. I can remember I was part of a senior leadership team at cricket in 2005, just before the famous Ashes series of 2005, and my boss basically made this fairly major speech, which was basically was his resignation letter about something, and agreed to depart, and then it was okay. So I just got hauled in by the chief exec at ECB at the time and said, we've had a chat and you're going to take over. Okay. Not even thought about that. It wasn't even in my thinking. I was enjoying doing what I was doing, worked in a team of some fairly big personalities, big individuals, and we were all on that same level. He said, right, so go and tell everybody you're in charge. You go and do it. Not, I will do it on your behalf. So one of those famous leadership lessons.
Yeah.
So you just want me to do your dirty work, sort of thing. So I imagine going back into the office, which my boss had just departed.
Yeah.
All these boxes around. That's your office, and crack on. No, there was no book or induction of you're now leading grassroots cricket in England and Wales.
Wow.
I've now got to tell my peers this is what's happened.
Yeah.
I've now got to establish myself as the leader of a group and the leader of a fairly major sport in grassroots terms. And at that moment, I suddenly realised, probably for the first time properly, I did a little bit of it's a really lonely place suddenly.
Yeah.
Because you're now, and everyone's looking at you going, okay then, so what do we do now?
Yeah.
Where do we go? What do we do? And I think it was the first time I can remember actually just thinking, right, what have I learned from business? What's my personal philosophy? Have I got a vision? Have I got some values to base everything on? So I can remember I had just come out through a business course in sport, and one of the things they said, right, one of the things you must do here is we want you to write your personal philosophy. And by fortune, I'd only done it a few months before.
Yes.
And the more I looked at what I'd written, I still now have the same philosophy of,
Yes.
so what am I going to do? So what we're going to do, we're going to make a difference. We're not just going to do what we've always done, we're going to make a difference. In cricket, in sport, it's not about sport development or development of the sport, it's about using our sport for development of people and individuals and young people. So we're going to make a difference. It's still my hashtag. People take the mickey constantly, so my response to people on LinkedIn, making a difference is my hashtag. And that became, right, so what does that mean? So it became, we're going to create opportunities, we're going to influence others of what we're doing and collaborating, we're going to do 1,000 things 1% better, not try and do one thing 1,000% better. And I borrowed a phrase from Lord Harris, who wrote a book in the Victorian age about cricket, and we are merely trustees of this game, and we pass this game on in a better condition than we found it. And that was it.
Wow.
Okay, everybody, that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to get into the detail because you're all really talented people, and I always think if you're in the room and you're suddenly the smartest person, you're in the wrong room.
Yes.
So you need really smart people around you, and that was what I had. Really, really bright people who knew what they were doing. They were the best in class in sport development at the time, but we are then guided by a set of principles.
What a great story.
And I still use those principles today.
Yeah.
How did it feel? Because you talked about the process you went through, but do you remember the feelings in that messy moment that you talked about feeling alone?
Yeah.
Or realising you were alone?
Yeah, and alone, I'm lonely, a bit vulnerable. And probably that's one thing we need to talk about this, what leaders who perhaps declare a bit of vulnerability. I didn't ever say, I don't deserve this, because I've worked for this, I've prepared myself, and the opportunity's now there, so I've got a chance, and I've got to show people I can deliver this. And that's really what it was. It was, what's that phrase? You can look for the challenge in the opportunity, or you can look for the opportunity in the challenge. And I just chose the opportunity. That's the same thing, different viewpoint, and guess what? It changes. It changes you, it changes everything, it changes how you project. And let's just look for opportunities, shall we? Let's create them.
Yeah.
And in September of that summer, I was on one of the open-top buses that went through London with the Ashes winning teams, but nothing to do with me, by the way.
It was so good, that.
Yeah. Someone said the night before when we left the Oval that the police think there could be 1 million people in London supporting the... No, there won't be. I remember working through that night with colleagues who'd done everything to get the buses ready. And there's some very famous pictures of some of our cricketers who they had a big night, it's fair to say. And that day was just to be on that bus, just taking that in. My job was really just to make sure people didn't fall off the bus or get off the bus when they shouldn't, or get anybody on the bus when they shouldn't have been. But it was probably one of the most incredible days I've ever spent. Just looking at a mass of people, and we'd won an Ashes series, not won a World Cup. We hadn't. It was just an Ashes series, but that pouring out of everything that the game had tried and striven for.
Yes.
Driven forward, it happened.
Yeah,
and it was great to be a part of.
Absolutely, a great story of turning a challenge into an opportunity and what could happen. That is amazing. So you've teased us with parts of your career. So for our listeners out there, could you give us a little bit of history of how you've started from banking and now where you are today? How's that?
That's not the most obvious route, I guess. Worked in banking, joined a bank at 16, straight out of and I'm very proud of being from a council estate in Cadizard in Salford. That's where I come from. And it was straightforward. At 16, you're not doing A-levels and going to university. You need a job.
Yeah.
You've got to earn some money to bring some money in. So right, okay. You wrote off. That's when you wrote off the banks. And actually, I was in Manchester last night with a friend of mine, a colleague who I'm going to do some work with, and we were walking up King Street, and I said, that was my first ever job at 16. King Street, TSB on King Street, and joined a bank, and that's when you realise you were trained meticulously in this is how you do things.
Yes.
Don't think, you do it this way. This is the procedure. This is the process, and I think going in, I do think I was fortunate where I was placed, a little small branch of a bank in Warrington in Latchford. I had a manager of the bank, and I realise now he was my first mentor. Never called himself that, but I still today use phrases that he would just give you a little support here, a bit there, and you just realise that he was looking out for you.
Yeah.
And imagine now, 16-year-old in full-time work in a bank. I've only just done my GCEs a few weeks earlier. And then in banking, as it became, you realise fairly quickly you can get on if you work hard.
Yes.
And that meant banking exams, becoming an associate at the Chartered Institute of Bankers, and marketing and management, and doing various things. And so I did a few years of that, got to some decent positions, spent a year in abroad in a banking exchange. Again, probably a fairly major influence in my life, just being sent to Spain, which is quite nice, by the way.
Yeah.
So go to Madrid. That's the first thing you've got to do. On the 1st of December, you're going to be in Córdoba in Andalusia, so you've got to speak Spanish.
Wow.
And no sabía nada antes, so I didn't know anything of the language. So you went to a language school for 3 months, and then landed off a train in Córdoba in Andalusia, having learned to speak Spanish in a language school in Madrid, and then these people in Andalusia. It was like learning to speak English in a London language school and going to Newcastle.
Yes.
Because I had no idea what anybody was saying. Sort of picked up vague words, but you realise then I had to then relearn how to speak. And that then really taught me about independence and really... So it's not surviving, but you've got to get on here. You've got to be in control. You've got to set how this all works. And huge amount of learning. A lovely place to live, Córdoba in Andalusia, by the way. And then came back. Part of that was then the bank investing in you massively.
Yes.
That we talked about. And early 30s, thought, well, I'm going to be a bank manager for the next 30 years. Because then was, right, you've reached a level, and now you've just got to develop. I'm thinking, I can't do this for another, like Groundhog Day. Am I going to do this every day for the next 30? And then that was it. I always wanted to work in sport. I played cricket in the leagues in Lancashire and did a bit of coaching here and there. And I thought that's really what I want to be. That PE teacher. I want to do sport. That's all I'd ever wanted to do. As a kid in Cadizard, your whole day was football, cricket, rugby, golf, just anywhere, just play it on the park or whatever you could do. And then that's where I ended up. And then ended up in a part-time role in the Wirral, working for their sport development department. Then Lancashire came knocking and said, we're setting up, and that's when ECB was formed in 1996. And it was, right, we're going to have this thing that's called sport development, and we think you know what you're doing.
Yes.
You want to come in and help us? And then from there, Lancashire to ECB in 1999, the first World Cup in 99, not the first World Cup, but in England for a little while. And then 2005, that was quite successful. And then 2009, the FA came knocking and, well, what you've done for cricket, why don't you come and help us do that? Amazing. In grassroots football, and from football to set up, left football in 2017, and then a bit of consultancy, then realised I was, when consultants come and going, oh, we've been looking, the recruitment consultants, we're looking for this person, then you always got asked who you think could do the job, and I was coming up with a few names, going, I think they'd be doing a good job for you, and what about this? How would you do it? I'm like, well, I'd do this and I'd do that. And it turns out that British American Football wanted their first chief executive, and that's what I did, and set it all up. And it was just a volunteer sport. I then helped them professionalise Small P, how we did things, yes. Partnerships with the NFL. It wasn't funded. As a sport, we were not funded by Sport England or UK Sport in any way, shape, or form. So I was set on the course to get an established sport, get Sport England to invest in it and support it, get the game in the small version of the game into the Olympics, working with the NFL, get a partnership with the NFL. So that was my big goals, to Sport England funding, sport in the Olympics, work with the NFL, then you get UK sport funding because you're an Olympic sport.
Yes. And
then in March 2020, I took the decision, which wasn't messy, but it was a difficult, I'm going to close the sport down. Wow. And I closed down with massive support from my chair at British American Football. We sat on one Friday afternoon. It was Cheltenham, when Cheltenham Festival was going on, and the super spreader. Yeah. And we said, we've got games starting this weekend, we've got to stop the sport. I said, do you realise everyone's just watching 250,000 people at Cheltenham, and we're going to tell people they can't play on Sunday?
Yes.
And we took the decision, and we were 2 weeks before every other sport. Fortunately, it turned out the right decision. Then came back, took the sport. When you talk about adversity and you talk about difficult times, and I don't think anybody of my peers and people I know in sport after all these years, going through COVID was so challenging.
Yeah, sport in particular.
I mean just financially, but equally, sport is about belonging. It's about people being together. And I remember just going through all of those, taking your sport back to playing.
Yeah.
And I was looking, golf had started because they played miles apart. Cricket had started because, again, distance.
Yes.
And I went to the DCMS to say, I'm in charge of American football. And the official at the DCMS said, so talk me through how that works. I said, well, we get 11 blokes in a line and they're about a metre away from each other and they smash into each other. And the guys went, maybe come back in a couple of months when you've got something a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
We got the sport back in. Then we got Sport England funding, and the sport got into the Olympics, and the NFL are a great partner of British American Football, and the sport is a great sport. I love it. I love the NFL, but I also love American football, flag football, which will be in the Olympics in LA in 28, and I think the Britain women's team will be a medal opportunity. And I'll now pursue a non-exec career, and here I am now as a trustee and director of ECB.
Amazing.
Now you've rattled those off,
yeah.
Pete, as though, a lad. What would you say to the lad in Cadishead growing up, having just reeled off what you've just reeled? What would you say to the 16-year-old, maybe 15-year-old?
Believe, if that's what you want to do, that's what you can do. Because if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. That's simple, isn't it? If that's what you want to do, then follow your dream, pursue it. that preparation meeting opportunity. But yeah, it's going to be hard work as well, by the way.
Yeah.
And you've got to put a shift in.
Yes.
But don't be frightened of hard work. I see it today of people, and you just see this entitlement of, well, why can't I be having that job? Why can't I have that role? Why can't I? I'm now that person in the room at nearly 65 who I used to be one in the room looking for that person to go and get all that guidance and wisdom, if that's right, or counsel. And that's what I try to do now, try to put that back in and share that back.
And you definitely do. I've been in a room with you for, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, outside of this environment, and I just soak the information, decision making, why you've made decisions, wisdom. Where does that? How do leaders culminate what they know to help them communicate to others in a really succinct, useful way?
I think it's starting with a real clear vision. And I know it sounds trite and it sounds like a leadership, but if you've got a really clear vision and purpose of what it is you're trying to do, you can't be distracted by someone going, oh, there's a big shiny thing over here, we should do this now. And well, no, this is the vision. Yes, the vision can be, I've always likened it to strategy being like it's a bus journey. You've got a bus and you've got somewhere on the front where you're going, and everyone sits in the right seats doing the right thing, and your job is to put the right people in the seat. Everybody wants to be the driver or the bus conductor at the back. No, you put the right people with the right skill sets in the right seats. Some people have to get off the bus because they're not going to take the bus anyway. But once you've got all the right people on the bus, you can take the bus anywhere you want. And that's the analogy I use. A fairly poor one, but it is you can take that bus. So it's really about having that clarity of vision, knowing the direction on the front, knowing who should be on the bus. And one of the things that I was talking last night with a colleague and prospective person I'm going to work with, and I just asked them to measure themselves in their new role of where are you on your purpose as an organisation and personally, where are you on your people, where are you on your numbers, whether that be a profit or growth or a KPI, and where are you on the future? And if you can be really clear what my purpose and vision is, who my people are and what I want and what I expect, standards, values, whatever you want to call it, I'm absolutely on my numbers, budget and or my growth target, but I've got one eye on the future, because leadership, you've got to see around corners.
Yeah.
You have to be able to see around corners, and if you're not looking ahead, your operations people are, because their head's in what they're doing, and that's what you want them to be, but you've got to be expecting what's next and be 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of your competitor or other sports, because they'll be doing the same. So you've got to be on that all the time, and getting that balance of the present and the future, and nurturing the identity of the organisation is pulling it's pulling and pushing in all directions. And the trick, and I think the skill set, is having real clarity on that, and then not being swayed from it, but being swayed for the right reasons at the right time. Because if you're not listening to the smarter people in the room, you could be going down what do you talk about? Failure is not a cul-de-sac, it's just a detour, potentially, is what you should be looking for.
And I could see that in your messy story. So at least the first 2. So you started out, it was messy, but you kind of worked on, it was your principles, but your purpose, it was kind of moving towards that. And then you said, and we had some brilliant people, amazing people, better than me in the room, and we worked it out together. And I guess then you looked at your numbers, and then you thought about what's your future.
Yeah. Some of that then becomes just the business of sport, and what are the numbers, what do the numbers need. And again, that was a great grounding from banking, because you used to make lending decisions based on, well, you can't afford this, or you can afford this, and this is the business proposition that you're making.
Yes.
And when you apply that into sport, and good governance is as much about finance as it is about the people and the decision-making processes and what you're doing. So that business grounding.
Yes.
Always help me when you start to apply budgets, especially in things like American football where we didn't have any money.
No.
Well, the money came from the members, and you had to get the money in, and there were some pretty tight, messy moments when you've gone, we know that's coming in there, and that's got to go out there, and you've got to manage resources on a fine, sort of very difficult times. And I guess that if you look at sport and business today, you're talking really fine margins, difficulties, costs going up, no more income, and they are real decisions in sport, in business, and you've got to constantly think, well, where's my new income stream coming from, and how am I going to be cost effective, not cost cutting, because that's easy. Cost cutting is dead easy. You can take money out of a business tomorrow. Take it out the wrong areas.
Yes.
Good luck.
Absolutely. And that framework is a really good framework for people to rely on. I love that a lot. And we often have people who are from the world of sport, and the world of business looks to sport, for some of those leader analogies and coaching and what can we learn. Having been in both worlds for a good amount of time, actually, probably a good split. What's the difference? What do you see from a leadership point of view in the world of business versus the world of sport, and what can we learn from each other?
I think in sport, sport is really a simple. Someone said to me, "What is sport?" It's logos and egos. That's it. The logos of commerciality, the logos of the badge on the front of the shirt, the logos of the commercial partners you support with TV deals. There's the logos, and then there's the egos in sport, and some of those egos are the size of the UK. They're enormous. So working in sport, you've got to be able to manage and understand there is egos and there are logos, and you've got to work your way through that. I think the one thing in sport that business loves and likes and respects is some of those egos and those winners, and they're inspirational characters. Sir Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, Gareth Southgate, they are inspiring in what they do. You look at Claire Connor, who I work with, she's Deputy Chief Executive of ECB, and Claire Connor, from being a player in cricket, as England captain, to now, a really major leader in cricket, and taken the women's game from nothing to where it is today, with the Women's World Cup coming up in June, and over 6,000 women's and girls teams in the country, from basically nothing 20 years ago.
It's incredible.
20 years ago, Claire would have been captain of England at Lords in a one-day international, but she wasn't allowed in the long room because the MCC didn't want women in the long room. So it's not that long ago.
It's not long, is it, at all?
So when you start, so what business I think thrives on is having those inspiring, inspirational leaders, but when they speak, whether it be Gareth, or they speak about fairly straightforward business terms about thinking clearly under pressure by creating a sense of belonging. That's the crucial factor. If you talk about any sports leader, they talk about create belonging.
Yes.
That belonging in, that's where you feel safe, you feel your well-being is improved, but actually I feel part of not just this team, but I feel part of what's gone on, what shirt was worn before me, where this team is going, and what am I going to do in my bit right now, passing that, leaving it in a better condition than I found it.
Yes.
And I think really strong leaders, and that's what business like that, create belonging. Because when I started in banking, there's no doubt about it, it was profit, margin, you've got to do this. And it got progressively, it was a contributory factor to why ultimately I wanted to move on, because there's only so much you can drive in terms of profit. And banking's a very different world now than it was when I left. I don't think I've been in a bank for the last 15 years. I can't remember the last time I actually went in a building because I just do it on the internet now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I get everything I need, and actually infinitely more. So I think that's what business wants. They like this. What does a good dressing room look like? Where do winners come from?
Yes.
And you know what? It's balancing belonging. It's balancing what you will accept as a leader. And the great leaders, the people who really... There are some leaders in sport I wouldn't let anywhere near any business. But those real leaders, the inspiring leaders, that they talk about standards.
Yes.
That's what I'm prepared to walk past is therefore what I accept.
Yes.
And they've set their standards. What they accept on a practice pitch is what you will get on the real game on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. And it's that I'm not accepting anything less than this. So if you're in a business and you're, they turned up a bit late today and they didn't actually meet the targets and that was, it starts like the broken window syndrome, doesn't it? You don't just see to that bit and then someone takes a little bit more. And
yes.
You can work from home one day a week. I'll do 2 days.
Yeah.
You were late on the call. It's tiny, tiny things, but as soon as you let them slip, they become bigger issues.
Definitely resonate, and I've seen that. It's always sprung to my mind, though, that it's a different playing field between the two. And what I mean by that is, in sport, and I'd love your views on it, they train, they practice 90% of the time to perform, say 10% of the time, roughly, probably a lot less than that, but around that time. And they value rest really importantly.
Yeah.
Whereas in business, actually you're performing 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And you probably train and rest 1% of the time. And therefore actually the context and the worlds in which you work and the standards and the expectations are not quite apple for apple.
And no, they're not, but I think that is where what I think sport can contribute. People in business, I still see it, and you see it in the business of sport. People who work off field, their diary is it's showing up. Look how busy my diary.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got back-to-back meetings, and it's like a badge of honour. So where are you resting? Where are you thinking time? Where's your training and development? How many businesses? First thing, we need to cost savings. Take the training budget out. So now you're not training your staff to make them any better. So they're not feeling valued. So that the spiral starts. So I think that, like you say, in sport, there's one thing that sport does incredibly well. We have to plan for the game. We know what's going on. You don't go behind a tree with binoculars, but you plan ahead. You plan ahead. You then sort of prepare for that game, that performance, and then you perform. In real high intensity for relatively a short spell. In cricket's obviously a lot longer than football, but you're performing in areas, and then you're resting, but you're resting and reviewing what you've done, and you're resting and recovering properly. Whereas if I looked at someone's diary and said, where's your planning day? Where's your preparation? When you come out of that meeting, you're into another meeting, so where's your review of and actions of that meeting, and when do you recover? What's your weekend? Oh, work at weekend because I've got things to do, and people, I don't mind working on holiday because I keep on. Where's your total recovery coming?
Yes.
And that's why I think that's where sport can really start to make the difference. Not necessarily in the messaging. Well, it is messaging because that's what creates high performance.
Yes.
And I think there's a growing aspect now is when you start to think in sport in real high performance terms. When you bring high performance from Olympic sports and real high performance into team sports, and it's always like, they come from high performance sport in whatever discipline, but they don't know football or cricket or they know high performance environments.
Yes.
And that's what a high performing environment looks like. So are you creating a high performance environment? And frankly, quite often business of sport businesses don't, because I've got to get another 60 hours in this week, and I've got to do more of this, and I've got to do more of that.
And I wonder, Pete, whether that starts from the working class 16-year-old analogy. I've worked really hard.
Yeah.
You've got to work hard to get where I've got to. And actually there's a recognition, I think, around the flip of that says, then how do we create high-performing, not just hard-working environment?
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. And what did I do? I just worked lots of hours. I put the shift in, and I combined that with a young family and playing my sport. And sometimes I look back and go, blimey, how did that happen? But it was just that's the funnel vision, if that's right. I was absolutely focused. Whereas my change as I've aged and experience, actually I need to stop and think. My time's really precious, by the way. So I need to protect my time. If a friend of mine always says, if someone was stealing money out your pocket, you'd be really, really angry. Well, someone who's taking your time and interrupting in the office and coming in and, can I just have 5 minutes? They're taking your time.
Yeah.
Going back to my banking days, there was one of my directors of credit, a lovely guy. You're thinking back now, he used to smoke a pipe in the office. I mean, it's just, you would never do it today, but he smoked a pipe. And I thought, I need to see the director of credit. And he said, you can't go in. And I'm looking in this big, real carpet about that deep and a haze of pipe smoke. I said, well, he doesn't look very busy. He's thinking. And that's very few. He's thinking. And when I went in, I said, can I just... And he gave me absolute focus and attention and helped me. And I said, thinking that you were doing, what were you thinking? He said, just thoughts, long term, what we should be doing next. Wow. That's in my day. And it was one of those things. I was probably going, fuck, nothing in there. That bloke is getting paid a fortune for smoking a pipe.
Yeah.
And then weeks later, when they decided we're going to, and he came up with an idea, then formulated the idea, and you suddenly, I see where that came from.
Yeah.
But he took the time to think.
So important. We don't give ourselves enough space to do some of that, and I think we can learn a lot from the world of sport and, and that analogy in helping leaders. And you've got such an experience of helping leaders and coaching and developing them. And you talked about your 4 areas. When you are looking at a new leader in this space, what sort of things would you do with them to help them think about their purpose and their people and their numbers and the future? How does that apply for a new leader?
I think what I try to do, and I think anybody I've worked with, and I've taken this from other people, it is literally creating yourself a framework to operate within. Because if you're thinking this and that, and it's all a little bit all over the place, by creating a framework, and I guess I'm on the spectrum somewhere, as we all are, but I like lists, and I like to write things down, and I take my time and try and help people start to think, if it's your purpose, right, let's now talk through what that means. And then think about your planning, and let's think about what that looks like, and preparation, let's think what that looks like. And then in terms of your performance, let's think what that looks like. So what does great look like? Not what good looks like, what does great look like? Because there's a lot of people who could just do things and it's good enough.
Yeah.
And there are times when things are good enough. Because
Yeah.
if you're a perfectionist, that's one of the things I always ask them, what would you do? Would you take 100% perfect but it's late? Or would you take 80% almost there and it's ahead of time? And people they lose their mind. What does he want me to say? And how does he want me to? Well, there's some things, 80% there or thereabouts, it's good enough. Then you take that, but there are certain things which you've got to get right. So I just try and get them a framework around that, around making sure that those 4 areas are your key measures. And if you don't know your numbers in business, in sport, your numbers you can't argue with figures. The figures are what they are. The numbers are what they are.
Yeah.
But I think we got to measure the right things, because what gets measured gets done. So if you're measuring the wrong thing, well, that's pointless. So I like to sort of, I try and get some people I work with now to KPIs are you keeping people informed? Are you keeping people interested? And are you keeping people inspired? They're your KPIs. So that's, if you're getting those things right, and the numbers sort of take care of themselves. And I think that's what I really try and hone in on terms of those 4 areas. If you're a leader, you drive the culture here.
Yes.
The culture is what the culture is. The culture then drives everybody's behaviours. and you hold people to the culture, and then the behaviours just create the results, and then you don't need to. If you're trying to drive the results from being a leader, well, you're interfering,
Yes.
and you're getting in the way. But if you're the culture, what is it? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's so true. If you create the right culture, if you create a culture of challenge and support and understanding and belonging, and that culture, do you know what? Everything else happens.
Amazing.
I think your point about numbers, and Lisa, with you started off in banking, I believe.
I did.
But you've always talked about the importance of that, because it seems to my mind that lots of leaders or lots of their employees don't know the fundamentals of what make the profit, or what make the break-even point, or how the business generates money or participation, whatever field you're in, and therefore the decisions, the innovation, the thinking might be a great idea, but actually when you then spoke about focus, it's a great idea, but it's just not in the right context, or they don't understand the principles of it. You know, as you were speaking there, Pete, I'm not just saying, I'm like, in my own mind and checklist, I'm going, I need a plan quick. But genuinely, and because I came up, I've talked about 5 Ps, and I think you've covered them all actually. Okay. So, purpose, plan, preparation, performance, and then pursue. Yeah. And the pursue is like, however the performance has gone, where do you go to next to either get great or to right a wrong or a mistake, and then go back to your purpose and check it.
Yeah, that yeah, totally agree. And I think as you do that, as you go into the, if you like, looking at the numbers, what are the things that move the dial? And what's the Olympic rower? But what makes the boat go faster?
Yeah,
it's fairly simple, straightforward. Is this going to make the boat go faster? Because if it's not going to make the boat go faster, why are we doing it?
Yeah. But it is right. But here's the thing, I think that's the wave in the water. Yeah, is people go, I don't work with boats. Yeah, I know this sounds daft, right? But because people talk about North Star all the time, well, I don't really understand that concept. Yeah. So if you don't work in boats and you go and you don't understand how you make a profit or how to increase participation, how therefore can you do your bit to add value to the organisation or the purpose?
So that's why you have smart people in the room. Because you say to them, our North Star is we're going to be, in cricket terms, the nation's most inclusive team sport, and we're going to grow the game, and we're going to lead the game through digital transformation. There are 3 big strategic objectives. That's our North Star. You then got really smart people and go, right, how do we make this happen? What do we need to do in this area, and this area, and this area? And the smart people get it. Your job is to go, that's where we're going, and that's how fast we're going to take. And that's why you've got to be surrounded by really smart, clever, bright people who really get how to turn the number into a profit or a growth figure. But you've also got to be there to, and again, in my non-exec career now, I treat, my job is to support the executive, to give them as much air cover as they need. And my job is to challenge all the time, going, why, what, when? And that challenge, it's not trying to catch anybody out, it's not trying to be a smart arse, it's just challenge. And when you come up with all the right, you know what, thank you, you've got that one, you've absolutely nailed it, off you go. I don't need to challenge anymore. I now need to support you to actually achieve what we just said.
Amazing. And we've got the framework, and we've got purpose in the frame. We know our commercials, and we know what direction we're going, and we've got to manage those behaviours. So that's when our great people come in. What makes a great leader that gets our great people to do what we need them to do? What is it that makes a great leader or a great team? What are the things that shift that dial?
Humility, for one, but really understanding that. I also say, right, okay, so being the leader, doing all this and driving all this it's not about you. It's about your people. It's about investing. It's about taking the time. It's about ensuring they understand. It's about level 5 leadership. It's all about you. That's, you take all the credit. I'm going to push you, but then also, it's actually it's not about you as well as all about you. So you've got to understand both. So it's all about you and how you behave and what you sound like and what messages you give off, but how are you making people feel?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what they remember. Yeah, they don't really remember a word of what they said in the keynote or what they sent round on the end of week, you know, but they know how you made them feel. And if you make them feel good and belonging, and that's, but it's all about them. It's all about what they need and how they deliver. Because if they feel good and they see you giving them the credit, that's the secret, because they feel it's their idea and feel like they've delivered. And that's what I've worked in sport a long time, and banking was probably the same. Level 3 and 4 leaders, all those that made a lot of noise. It's all about me. It's all about me. Listen to my voice. I'm on the front of the magazine. I'm on the in-house video, all front and nothing behind. You know, those people know who they are.
Yeah.
But the real success comes from those that, you know, look in the mirror and not me as them.
So powerful and poignant, and you know, I recognise some leaders in my career. They've hardly said a word.
Yeah.
Actually, and they're not on social media platforms, Brian. You know,
Don't need to be.
No, and I think there's a place for that. You know, whatever. But that really resonates. That's just been really poignant, actually, and it's almost like the silent success.
Yeah,
of an organisation strategy thinking.
But when they do speak, they're praising and they're supporting.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not about me. It's about them, and it's about creating the environments, that culture. Those that focus on culture and do not allow anybody to deviate or drift away from. That's the culture. I'm not going to accept. Because as soon as you accept the big bugbear of mine, you know, football matches, rugby matches, and do the warm up. They've got their beautiful, pristine tracksuits on, and they've done the warm up. Kit man picks it all up off the floor.
Yeah.
Zip it up, fold it, give it to him. Make his job a bit easier. You all do it once, he has to do it 11 times.
Yeah.
So why are you not creating that as a culture? If you accept that, then the next one is it's thrown from a bit further away, or it's just thrown off the pitch, or just they're tiny things, but you know what, they
make a massive
they can grow. But if that culture, because that then creates the behaviours, and if the behaviours are good, as I said, you're going to get great results.
And how do you know how you're making your people feel? So as a leader, how will I know that? Where am I positioned on a day-to-day basis?
I think you've got to listen a lot. You really, and when, you know, I always sort of say you always know when you're in a good organisation, because you can sense what people are saying, not what they're doing. You feel that they're obviously encouraged to challenge, but they obviously, you can see and hear and feel when they're supported by what they say. Water coolers, coffee machines. That's where you find out.
Yeah.
You know, how many times have we all, you know, been in a meeting and we've all gone, yeah. As soon as you get in the car park, that'll never work. That'll never work. I don't know where he's got that one from. But if you were in the right environment, the right culture, you could just go, that's never going to work. Because, and what about? And have you thought, smart people in the room can contribute, and the real great leaders do that. They just go, got a great culture here.
And that springs to mind. I always frame that as being listening to what's not said.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to what is being said.
Yeah. That power of the unspoken in the room. So is everybody happy with that? Just, you know, it's going nowhere. So you then you get to your individuals. Go and speak to them. And it's difficult, isn't it? In a big room, I'm not going to say anything, because if I'm the first to speak up here, so then check it out. Check out your key people. You always know, I've tended towards, who's going to tell me? Have I got that right? Well, mostly, but what about? Have you heard what such a body's thinking? Right, I get it. And that's having that humility to go, got that wrong. Yeah, I really got that wrong. So what do I now need to do? What do I need to stop doing to do the right thing? And it is that doing doing things right and doing the right thing, but making the right decision then, not the popular one. As my wife says, if you want to be popular, be an ice cream man. because everyone likes an ice cream man, don't they? But actually, you just got to make the right decision, and sometimes it's hellishly difficult.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to tell someone that American football, you're not going to be playing American football this summer. I've paid you my fee, and you know, this all I've trained all winter to do this, and you're not going to let me play because the government, they have no idea what they're talking about. We can play, and some did. You know, we had to discipline people for going against the guidance. You know, we had to say, right, we're not going to take your fee because, you know, you're not playing. But actually, quite a lot of people said, oh, you know, take the fee. The sport needs it, and it built up a great. It was a small amount that didn't like it, but the vast majority of the people you were listening to were going, I think you've got this right.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not an easy job.
When you've got that, you back yourself then, don't you? Yeah. But back yourself with evidence and insight and really understanding. Don't shoot from the hip. That's never a good idea.
There's so many lessons for leaderships in this conversation, Pete, and you know, we've taken so much from it. And the world out there says that things are shifting, you know, that the pace of change is really shifting, and potentially the way that we lead is shifting. So if you are looking to the future and you've seen a number of generations come through and helped and support them, what advice would we give to leaders to make sure they're prepared for this shift in the future? And are you seeing it?
There are a few things. I think you've got to look at leadership now in terms of the globalism. The world's a really small place.
Yeah.
Things that happen in different parts of the world affect and impact really quickly. I think you've got to be really clear on be mindful of the politics, because that's one thing. I mean, I don't want to get into, but we're now finding people at real extremes with a view.
Yes.
And actually, we're all really quite happy somewhere in this, you know. But you've got to be mindful of the environment that you're now leading in, and the generation of people you're leading. One of the things that really I'm loving in quite a few sports at the moment is getting young people into. Everyone talks about diversity of thought.
Yes.
Oh, we need more women in the boardroom. Yes, we do. We need more diversity in the board. Yes, of course we do.
Yes.
Some of that diversity comes from age. People looking at things in a very different way. We should be listening, getting young people's voice, not doing what they want, but listening to what they say. You know, because it's important. Just part of the diversity of thought. You know, so that's one thing that I quite like to hear. You know, what is your thoughts and what are your opinions? Not I'm now going to do them, by the way, because I just need to balance your thoughts with those thoughts, and then I'll make a considered opinion. But I think we've got to look at the world now as digital transformation. I mean, I'm not the world's expert, that's for sure, but you'd look at what's happened in the last 5 years, so what's going to happen in the next 5 in terms of AI's impact, and embracing it, and I'm really embracing it and what that can do to help support the growth of sport and the transformation of the game. There are going to be massive opportunities. There'll be a few challenges in there that we're going to have to be really mindful of, but looking ahead, looking around corners and looking for the next big thing, and understanding where those opportunities really lie. I think globally is where it will be, and in sport, I think there's going to be more and more requirement for driving the income into the game, which is going to be straightforward as we're going to have to play more.
Yeah.
The more you play, players burn out, players drop out. We're responsible for that. So how are we looking after the well-being of our athletes, in whichever sport you're in?
Yeah.
If we create a system where they play every day, and there's no rest season, and you can look ahead and probably predict what that will look like.
Yeah.
So we've got to be mindful of balancing, and it is a balance of the amount they play, coupled with the media deals. You know.
Yeah.
The NFL do it; they play 17 games a season, so it becomes a very rare thing.
Yeah.
So maybe we should be looking at sports which do it right. Not saying everyone has to be the NFL, but let's start looking at scarcity. Sometimes is value.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? You've got 5 key things. I'm going to say it back because they're really important things that you've come up with there. So for future leaders, we really need to think about on a global scale. So globalization is really important. We talked about politics and understanding your environment. I think that absolutely is key. That diversity of thinking and thought, and actually embracing the fact that we've got all these multi-generations at our fingertips. We probably never had. Some leaders are now looking after 5 generations in one go. Yeah. What an amazing diversity of thinking and thought in there. I think you said digitalisation, but really you were thinking about, future thinking and looking around corners, which you brought in early doors. I think that is really, really important skill, and be able to be comfortable as you can with that uncertainty that says what may happen and what if is really important. And I think that well-being side, that's not just in sport that you've brought in there, that we all have to do more with less, I think, and whether that's generate more income or do things differently. And actually that is going to put ultimately more pressure on our people, and actually generations that they come through won't put up with as much either. They want more of that balance. So how are we going to deliver what we need to deliver, but make sure that we're looking after the well-being of our people? So I think that's a really good grounding for future leaders. Thank you, Pete. That's fantastic.
Could speak all day. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully you don't feel like we stole it.
No, not at all. No, it was a good investment. I hope it was a good investment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Final question from me. Who should we consider having in the hot seat where you are today that's been a really inspiring leader that you could help get us?
Blimey, well, I can help get it. I spoke to her about her before. Claire Connor, who's about to step down as the Deputy Chief Exec of ECB. A real leader, that's one of the great things in my view about the future of women in sport. It just makes why wouldn't we? But B, creates a very, very different leadership thought, balance, brings so much more to sport. Claire has been through it. She started as a young player, went through, I suspect, some real challenges as being a young female playing sport and being a real, at the start of her career, would have gone up against some real challenges in the long room at Lords, and to end up captaining her country to an Ashes win, to becoming the leader of women's cricket, to driving it internationally, to this year taking a World Cup here. Claire she will give you some phenomenal insight, and I'll have a word with Claire.
What a great
Amazing
recommendation. Absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can tell that you do pass the baton and make the difference. You just seem like a very kind, great leader. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks so much for listening and watching to this week's episode of Leadership Actually. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time for a funky episode. Thank you.